Mr. Chair, you are live.
I am live. Thank you. Welcome everyone to the July 2022 regular meeting of the Maritime Advisory Board of the City of Annapolis. My name is Terry Lomax. I'm the chair. As I usually do, I will just go around my screen and introduce who we have present this evening. We have Debbie Goslin, who's a member. We have Alan Miller, who's a member. We have Jake Iverson, who is a visitor, a regular visitor. Stephen Rice from the City of Annapolis. Duncan Hood, a visitor. Our alderman from Ward 8, Alderman Arnett. We have Julian Jacques from the City of Annapolis TV. And we have Frida Wildy, member, Ashley Leonard from the Office of Law, and Mike Tomasini, member. So with that, we will get started. We do not have Kimberly, but is there as she had said, all the minutes from the June meeting, is there a motion? First of all, is there any corrections or amendments to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt the minutes from the June 22 meeting? Mr. Hood is motioned and Ms. Goslin seconded. All in favor? Aye. Kimberly?
Aye.
Kimberly,
Aye.
for your benefit, Kimberly, it was unanimous. And I'm going to be saying things like that only so that because she's going to be listening to the recording for the minutes for next month. Economic development update, Mr. Rice. We'll get you. You're going to get to go home early if you want.
Good evening. Glad to be here today. The exciting thing that I'd like to talk a little bit about today as far as an economic development update is our economic gardening pilot program. This program is something that we launched recently with the National Center for Economic Gardening. And the concept for economic gardening essentially opines that based upon research, it's better to support local businesses that are stage 2 businesses that are having rapid growth than it is to go out and try to recruit businesses and bring them to your local jurisdiction. And the concept centers around the fact that local businesses that are rapidly growing are going to historically hire locally and spend locally. So they have an economic impact in the community that is fairly significant. So to that end, we have launched an economic gardening pilot program. We are looking, oh, and let me back up too. The other thing that is neat about this program is that we are targeting this specifically to maritime businesses. And coming out of the Maritime Task Force report, there were various recommendations, and this is something that we think can be done to support the maritime industry. So specifically, what we're looking for, what economic gardening can do for these businesses is provide them with research and assistance. We're looking for 5 businesses to participate in the program. And the areas that these businesses would get essentially free help in would be strategic research, market research, social media analysis, strategic customer and competitor mapping, and also sales leads. And stage 2 businesses, there's a lot of questions about that. And of course, we have this on our economic development website, but these are obviously for-profit businesses that have revenue between $1 million and $50 million. They have between 10 and 100 employees, and they've shown growth during at least 2 of the last 5 years. So these are businesses that are typically on a pretty nice growth trajectory. What also typically happens with businesses and owners of these businesses is that they're too busy to get some of the things that this pilot program will provide them. And so We have a great onboarding program. We have great partners, and this program has proven successful in a lot of jurisdictions around the country. So, again, the information is on our website, but if you have businesses that you think might be great candidates, please spread the word and feel free to send them our way.
So, Stephen, I have a quick question, because what caught my ear was the fact that you mentioned that had growth in the last 2 out of 5 years. Thinking back over the last 3 years, that might kind of skew the COVID-19 might kind of have skewed the potentials for growth. And I wonder how they take that into account.
Yeah, that you're absolutely right. There's no question that the last 2+ years have been pretty brutal. But the 3 previous years, assuming that 2 of those 3 years there was growth at a pretty good clip, then businesses would still qualify.
Okay, it just caught me, struck me when I heard that. That's all.
Hey, Stephen.
Duncan.
Yeah, Stephen, is this a loan program, a grant program? What do you mean when you say economic gardening?
Well, I will. It's not a loan. It's not a grant. You could probably categorize it or see it as a grant. A lot of people look at this and they think of it as free consulting for the business. The economic gardening folks do not like that because, unlike consultants, depending upon the consultant, some consultants will stay on for implementation and that sort of thing. But this is free research. And these, the economic gardening team will do a deep dive on research and to present reports. We have examples of reports and so forth, and try to help provide the company with the information that they need to take it to the next step. And so that's probably the best way I could describe it.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Stephen, who are the consultants who actually do the research?
There's a team out in Colorado, and they will fly in, they'll meet with the business. Of course, there's certain information that, they have to get, and there are interviews and different things like that. But there's a team of researchers that are based in Colorado.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else? Thank you, Stephen.
Sure.
Duncan, anything come out of the Planning Commission update on the comprehensive plan?
Well, Terry, I would love to tell you yes. The answer is no. And, still hanging out waiting.
Well, it's a 2040 plan, so we've got a few some breathing room, I guess.
I may not be here by then.
I can assure you. Beth, let me take in the item D in reverse. Are we still chasing stray electric around the Truxton Park?
Wish I had an update. I don't. So I don't have any more news. And there's also been some electric identified off of EYC, such that people were complaining about electrical shocks when they put their hand in the water. They complained to Coast Guard. Coast Guard came out and identified that there was indeed some voltage in the water. I certainly sent that over to the city manager. He directed the city electrician to look into this, and I've had no update. So I don't have an update about Truxton, nor do I have an update about this new complaint.
I just so I'm clear, and it's good, and Kimberly's clear, this was at Eastport Yacht Club?
I hope I'm remembering that right, but that's my recollection. If someone else has a different memory, I would love to hear it, but that's my recollection.
The second topic before we just get to the updates on the street ends is and for those of you that don't know, there was a oil spill in Spa Creek recently. There was a short blurb in the paper, but I'm wondering if there's any update on A, the cleanup, and B, the source.
I don't have an update on the source. It was corralled in some form or fashion, and what I heard in writing, what I read was that it was like non-damaging, and that it would either evaporate and or the tides would take it away in such a way that it would not damage the ecology. And then we did go back and check on that, and we found that there was no more sheen. So definitely don't work for MDE, but we did what we were told to do, and we didn't see anything super disturbing as far as we know.
All right. On this topic, what's any new updates on the Street End Park program?
So the waterway improvement grant portal is open, just opened. And I believe the city is going to submit to have 3 or 4 improvements. I wish I could remember off the top of my head, but I'm pleased to report that Public Works has designated Michael Rosberg as our go-to person. So this is kind of a change, and it's a welcome change in my opinion. He's going to submit the grant requests because an engineer knows exactly what we need, and they're trained to know, okay, we also need stormwater, okay, we also need this, we also need that. And in the past, I think that's been one of our stumbling blocks, that we didn't know everything that we needed. So Rosberg's been assigned, and he's doing a thorough job. So he's going to be applying for the next 4 grants, and off the top of my head, I believe that's going to be for Thompson. More money for 6th Street because 6th Street won't be done. Thompson, 6th Street. And if you want to come back to me later in the meeting, I'll try to dig through my email because I definitely have a directive, so I can give you something more succinct.
All right. And just while we're on the topic, we can jump ahead to the St. Mary's shoreline. Is there any movement on that?
I think Ashley might have more information than me.
Repeat that. Sorry, an email came in and I got distracted.
I'm sorry, say that again, Ashley.
But I missed what Beth was referring to me because I got distracted by an email.
Oh, we were talking about the St. Mary's Cove shoreline project.
I haven't heard any updates from any of them. I mean, we had meetings and we sort of spelled out, Beth and I, Harbor Master and I spelled out what they sort of needed to do so that we could sign off on it and still be in good standing with DNR. But I haven't got any further updates from them.
Okay. Jake, for your information, Brian Callahan was going to follow up about a harbor tour, and I have not heard anything back from him. So I think, and given the fact that we're coming up into August, I don't think anything's going to happen for a bit, and I will just keep you advised, but don't put it high on your list. But speaking of which, how was the 4th of July? Busy?
4th of July, as far as the vessels go?
Right.
Everything ran smoothly. I thought it went pretty well.
I had a blast.
I will say, and I don't know if it's anybody else's thought, but the fireworks themselves seemed somewhat benign in terms of the display, and I don't know if that's just I'm sure it has something to do with whoever puts it on, but it just seemed it seemed like there was a little less of the lots of bangs, and it was just kind of repetitious. But that's just my own observation, and maybe I've just watched too many of them.
Maybe the case.
We got mixed reviews from our guests. A lot of them enjoyed it, didn't notice, and then some thought it was kind of lackluster.
Any update, Stephen, on the Maritime Task Force annual reports? It may not be the timing yet. I don't remember what the timing was. I know one of them is an end of year, but there's some interim reports too.
I don't have an update. I thought they were end of year, but I will check with my colleagues in planning and zoning.
You'll have 2 months to give us an update because we won't meet in August anyway, so there's plenty of time to follow up. But if you just make a note to let us know where that stands, that's all.
Okay.
Beth, I talked with Rick Nelson on. Go ahead, Ross.
I asked about that of planning and zoning, and as yet they haven't developed the report. So there's no form for any of the maritime establishments to fill out to report.
So if my recollection serves me, and I am not looking now specifically at there's 2 parts to the reporting. One is what you just referred to is the self-reporting of by the business on whatever form is going to be provided by the city. And then that in turn, if I remember correctly, leads to a report by staff to the planning commissions at the beginning of the year or something like that. I think I have that right. So there were 2 reports, I think, contemplated.
That's correct. And I had recommended to Eric that he talk to Cardi Templeton because at one of the sessions of the task force, I thought she laid out a pretty well fleshed out reporting format, and he could just go to the tape of that session and pretty much write it down and set it up. But I think it's been left in the shuffle.
We'll keep it on the agenda, and now Stephen gets to bug somebody to tell us what's going on, I guess. As I started to say, I spoke with Rick Nelson about the speed limit signage. I think, Beth, he is contemplating putting up some signage on his own property about no wake. And I encouraged him to follow up about signage with respect to the speed limit of 6 knots on some of the entrance buoys into Back Creek. And Mike had mentioned too, better buoys or signage, I'll call it. It's really buoys coming into Back Creek. I mean, into the Spa Creek, or actually is sort of into the area at the mouth of Spa Creek. I don't know if he's had any communication with you, or you've had any opportunity to follow up on whether or not we could get a couple more buoys, at least to remind people about the speed limit inside the line from Triton to Horn Point.
If he has, I don't remember, but I have a very busy email account. Someone can certainly send me another email. I'll forward it on to John Gallagher at DNR. He's very responsive. And so if they feel like, they're usually pretty reactive. So if I get an email to that effect, I'm happy to forward that on and see if they're willing.
Okay.
It's not like changing legislation. It's just more signage. So I would think that they would help us.
And I'll pass that on to Rick Nelson, and Mike, you heard that, so you can follow up on the Spa. I'll call it the Spa Creek side. Is really Horn Point, Triton Light point.
So just so I'm clear, I just want to make sure that I'm clear. I understand this. So running from Horn Point to Triton, there's 1 or 2. Maybe there's one on Horn, but maybe there isn't. What do we think that we want, so I can communicate that clearly?
Mike,
any additional buoys is better than none. Right now, there are 3 between Triton and Horn Point. and one of them doesn't have any lettering on it. It's just a white buoy on one side. So
You're out there all the time, Mike. And if you would be so kind as to send me a map and say, would love it if you would put one right here.
Yeah.
That might elicit a quicker response.
all right, I'll do that.
Because they might be like, wait, what do you want? Like if we give them a really specific request, I think we might have better luck.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll do that. I'll put together a map and I'll snap a picture of that buoy with no letters on it and put it in an email to you tomorrow morning.
Speaking of buoyage, and it's not within the city, but for those of us that are on the water, entrance into Meredith Creek has been significantly dredged. And is now marked by a series of white PVC posts with very distinctive green and red markings on them. And you can carry pretty much 10 to 12 feet of water from Whitehall Bay right on into Meredith Creek, which then in turn is 9 to 10 feet itself anyway. You don't notice any particular change yet in the boat traffic in and out of there, other than the one individual who's got the boats just inside. It has the big house on the Whitehall. I think that's Whitehall Estate there. But it has a definite significance to people. They're going to soon find out that it's a very protected place to raft up and have raft ups and rendezvous, and it'll be interesting to see what all of a sudden the neighbors will wake up and say, oops, we may have created something that we might not be happy with when everybody starts coming in the fall and discovers it's a very protected and very deep body of water inside there to come in and anchor it.
Harry?
Duncan, you had a question or a comment?
We had a presentation by the captain of the mega yacht Usher. And my understanding is that the owner has brought a piece of property in there and he's the guy who's managed all that.
Yes, that is correct.
Anyone who comes is welcome according to him. So I think your observations are probably pretty spot on. We're all going to be poking up in there and seeing what's about. So
as you go in, ironically, the same individual I had dinner with, and which I knew that was coming. I had dinner with him last fall. He is seeing a woman who's a mutual friend, is a friend of ours. But there, in addition to the dredging, just before you enter that area, there's a new large mooring buoy floating in Whitehall Bay that can accommodate the 100-foot yacht of the fleet. There's like 5 boats in that fleet.
yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy how you can use them all at the same time. But in any event, just an FYI for those of you that are out on the water a lot, it opens up that creek dramatically to be able to get in. The VHF radio, Duncan, I got a call from Andy, who's up in Maine at the moment, but what he asked me to pass on is there was a company named Martel that actually had the rights to the VHF channel, and it wasn't CETO, and then they were charging a fee for CETO or others to use that channel. And
Wow, now that's really interesting.
yes, and so Martel was charging $150 a month to CETO, which they found after a while that it may well have, their customers were, boaters did like it. But then Martel has subsequently gone bankrupt. And apparently that channel, or the rights to that channel, now may be available again. He passed on the name of a guy by the name of Joe Fornhofer III. And they call him Joe 3, who was one of the executives with CETO. And so you might touch base with Andy in due course and get a contact point for him Joe 3 might be able to shed some more light on who we license the VHF
Yeah.
check from. And then we can collect, the city can collect $150 a month from whoever wants to put on it.
Why the heck not? So let me catch you up a little bit on this. I cannot find, and I've really dug down, I can't find anyone who makes this piece of equipment. I have found people who can make this piece of equipment. So it would be, you know, a marine or radio engineer who could put something together for us.
Well, Andy referred to them as you license the box.
Yeah.
And so,
I absolutely will follow it up because it's been.
and maybe this guy, Joe 3, would be the right person to give us a lead on who, because there must be boxes. I mean, maybe they still have an old, you know, a box laying around. I mean,
Yeah, you know, no kidding. So I will go through Andy and chase Joe 3 down because otherwise, you know, we have to go into business for ourselves making these things and then we make the big bucks.
yeah. Yeah, something like that.
All right, well, I'll keep running it down. Thank you very much. I appreciate the lead.
Thank Andy. He was the one that called me and took time out from wherever he was in Maine. Frankly, that brings us to the only other only other topic tonight, and that is there will be no meeting in August. So that doesn't take a lot of discussion unless there's somebody who's got real heartburn about not having a meeting, in which event you're welcome to chair it and set it up. But otherwise, that is it. If I'll just go around, Debbie, anything for the good of the cause?
Not for me.
Jake,
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Stephen, you've already said your part mostly.
I'm good, thank you.
Duncan,
Everyone have a wonderful August.
Beth,
Just something to talk about maybe next meeting. It seems like the conversation is growing about Airbnbs on city moorings and city docks, but also like commercial activity. So that's a little bit of a tricky subject because maybe I bareback charter. That feels like it's not commercial activity, but then maybe I put my boat on a mooring and then captain comes and picks me up, and then there's like 4, 5, 6 people that come pick up my boat on a city mooring. So A, they're grant encumbered. B, the city code says that we can't do that. And it seems like the conversation is growing because there's been some enforcement action that some people may or may not agree about. So I would love to see where the board stands on that, if they have some advice for city managers on that.
so that does raise an interesting question, because a person who goes over to Oxford and bareboat charters and then sail for a week and comes to Annapolis, one could argue, I guess, that that's a commercial activity or it is a Airbnb of sorts. And how is that any different than if I take my boat out and put it on a mooring and charter it to somebody who doesn't get underway?
I mean, that feels fine to me, but based on our grant encumbrances and based on the city code, it doesn't feel fine if I put my boat at city dock for winter storage and then I rent it out as an Airbnb all winter long.
No, and I understand.
So it's a little different. A bareback charter is a little different. It's like I rented a car and I came to city. That's fine, but it's a little different if like I have a captain that's meeting me on a mooring. It's like then I start to monopolize these assets, which we all know we turn boats away every weekend. So is that what the team wants? And is that in collaboration or concert with our land use agreements with our moorings? That's the question, I suppose.
Well, and I only bring it up because I can see where somebody could say what is the difference between a bareboat charter, and I think as we are thinking about this issue, perhaps we need to be thinking about how we define a distinction between a pure boat B&B and a bareboat charter, which is nothing more than renting the boat to be on it for a week. It just so happens that it moves from where you rent it to a city mooring as opposed to starting out on a city mooring or a city dock. I
think
just saw it.
I think there's certain parts of that that can be gray. And I think we might need to think about what we want that to look like.
Well, and that's the only reason I bring it up is for everybody to think about how we're going to craft the legislation or craft the enforcement that accommodates that.
Yeah. So
All right, I made a note of that for the next for the September meeting. And Ross, anything from you? You're next on the screen. Alan, you're next on the screen. You can just
Happy to be here. I kind of joined during COVID. Just kind of wondering, I don't know, do we ever get together face to face? Or is this kind of a COVID thing?
It's really more of a city thing. We used to meet at the rec center at Truxton. We do get together because I take December and I make sure we have a Christmas get together somewhere that is not on city property so that we can have non-alcoholic beverages if we want to. And I had anticipated that we might be doing a creek cruise with members, which hasn't happened, but it's a good point. Let me put down that, and I know Frida has that same, and I do too, that even if it is just periodic, it doesn't have to be every meeting, but give it some thought to an in-person meeting somewhere along the way.
So if it's ever a function of place, then obviously we have 2 big classrooms here. We're happy to volunteer if that helps.
Perfect. I just made a note about Christmas. Frida, anything from you?
Well, I endorse Alan's idea. I love getting together in person, and maybe after this current strain of COVID rips through everybody, it seems like all our friends are knocked down with it. But I wanted to say thank you to whoever put up on the telephone poles the no wake signs in Eastport. I don't know if anyone's noticed them, but I think I've seen 1 or 2 up, and Mike probably knows who did it, but I love it because we have a speeding problem, and it's great to see the no wake signs up on telephone poles on Chesapeake Avenue. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your summer.
All right. Ashley, you can, anything you need to bring up?
No, I don't think so.
All right. And Mike, you're last only because you're the bottom right-hand corner on my screen.
I do not know who put up those signs, but I think they're super clever. I'm gonna give maybe credit goes to Ross. He probably had something to do with it.
Don't take it.
I guess
Love that. That's great. Thank you, Ross.
I have to go down and take a look because I haven't seen them, but then I guess I need to go for a walk. All right, everybody, have a good 60-day hiatus. Enjoy the rest of the summer and try to stay cool. And certainly stay hydrated. It's kind of brutal out there.
Thanks, everybody. Have fun.
All right, Jillian, thanks for your help. Wait a minute. We need a motion to adjourn. I guess we do.
So moved.
All right, second.
Second.
Alan, second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Aye.